to come and share their knowledge, their skills, their passions, their ideas with you, to help you guys, I guess, ultimately take that knowledge away and use it in your own business, so that we can keep drinking beer, we can keep drinking real beer that's been grown with real crops, with real rain that's fallen from the sky. And also enjoy that wilderness, which I guess for me is the reason that I know that I'm alive, and I see real wilderness, and that's to me what it's all about. So not only are we going to hear from them, we're going to hear from you. So I hope you read the invite properly, and you're all supposed to be here with your own ideas and your own little snippets, and you're going to jump up and yell and scream, and we need that. If I'm not hearing jumping and yelling and screaming, I'm going to be pretty upset. So yeah, get into it, no throwing of beer bottles, but plenty of excitement. And as I said, this is about giving you guys ideas, knowledge, motivation, passion, so you can take it home, use it in your own business, whether you're a startup company, maybe you're working for the government, maybe you're working for a big multinational. You can take these ideas and work them into your workplace, work them into your business, but even take them home. Use it to work on your annoyingly sceptical husband that won't believe in what you're telling. Ideas that you can argue with him or someone at the pub who's giving you the craps. This is what this night's about. So use it. So without any ado being further, I'm going to introduce our first speaker, Adam. Adam's the director, one of the directors at Tinderbox, but very successful branding and marketing agency, but he also speaks with experience. He's had a lot of success in a lot of ventures, including Garbology, which sort of is looking for a world without waste. But I won't say any more. I'll hand it over to Adam. He's got 5 minutes to give you his pitch, and then we'll be moving on to the next speaker. So welcome, Adam.
Adam speaking for 5 minutes, it never happens. But anyway, let's see how we go. What I want to introduce to you is the idea of selling sustainability that sells itself. Imagine if sustainability sold itself as well as Apple can sell its gear. You know, Apple puts out any old dross, yeah, and we buy it. We buy it even though we know it's not the best in the business, it's not the most pretty, but it's not necessarily the most beautiful product out there. It sells it because people are hooked into Apple. Apple is what they identify with on a really deep emotional level, and that's not by coincidence. That's actually a very deliberate, thought-out process. What they do is they hook into what we call archetypes. Archetypes are psychological archetypes where they communicate in a particular voice, and they hook into particular aspirations of people. So if you're part of the Apple thing, then you presumably would see yourself as an artist. You'd see yourself as someone different to a PC. Remember that Apple versus PC ad? That still continues in the way we work. And that's what I would love to put out there, is that the way we do branding in the environment, in sustainable, is so important. If you can get a good, strong brand, the brand can walk into the room ahead of you and you can do your thing. It will carry what you're trying to tell people, and it will do so on a really deep emotional level. They don't actually know what's happening to them. It's not tricking them. It's hooking them in a really deep and meaningful way. And there are processes that can be done, and that's I guess it's a little tiny plug, but that's the beauty of what Tinderbox does. It's this really clever process of taking people through of these archetypes and identifying which archetype works best for their business to communicate what it is they're wanting to do. And that archetype is not necessarily save the planet. Even though that may be what we're wanting to do, it may be something completely different. It may be something like, let's be a thrill seeker. Let's talk in that thrill seeker voice. It's totally at odds, perhaps, with what you're trying to do, but if you communicate in this way, and you can actually take everything through that lens of a thrill seeker and massage all your communications around that, and then the people who hook into that, they are your tribe. They will actually advocate for you. They will push your message, and you have people out there talking about your business you've never met. They're saying how great you are. You don't even know them. You've never told them what you do. That's what brand can do for you. That's what, if you can get the brand right, if you can be very thoughtful in this, it doesn't happen by accident, it happens by design, and it does a whole lot of work for you. You don't have to walk into a room and tell them why they need your services. They want your services. They ask you into the room.
Fantastic. I forgot to keep time.
Oh my God.
I think that was perfect.
That was perfect.
Yeah. Look, that was fantastic. I got a heap of questions for you, but I'm going to hold on to them, and I hope you guys do as well. So second up is Kiara from Psaros. No, sorry.
I've been subbed. She's
Sven,
been subbed
sorry,
out.
yes. Hang on. We got 2 for the price of 1 here. We've actually got the lovely Sven, the sales manager from Psaros. It was going to be Kiara, also from Psaros. But welcome, Sven. Sven is, I guess, more recently been chucked into selling sustainability. He's been doing sales for pretty much
A long time.
a long time, so he knows his stuff. Quite secretly, I think he really enjoys selling the green. But we're going to hear from Sven on how to sell.
You were going to get an expert, you got me. Look, let me tell you this. I don't care, right? I don't care what I believe. And this is the real challenge that I see when I see people that are trying to sell this whole green concept, etc. Is, to be honest, you can't sell yourselves out of a paper bag. Right? Most people there, you're sitting there and you're preaching in church, this green message, and everyone goes, yeah! That's not selling, that's preaching. If you want to do a good job at selling green, you need to get pagans to believe. Loud agreement isn't selling anything. And the way that you sell something is to understand other people's why. You need to get inside of their head and you need to understand what their hot buttons are. And until you can do that, you can't sell anything. Forget about your agenda for a second, because your agenda doesn't matter. Your agenda doesn't matter to me. My agenda matters to me. And until you uncover that agenda, you're not really selling. So I stand in a lot of sales suites on the weekend to protect my complexion and retain this youthful appearance. Yeah, and sometimes we stand there and we talk about wonderful life cycle assessments and renewable energies and all this sort of stuff that we have in our buildings, and you see people glaze over. Because you know what, they don't care. Some people, they don't care. They don't believe that global warming's got anything to do with mankind on this earth and all that sort of stuff. So it becomes a reframe. You have to reach out into what they care about. And what do they care about? Money, baby. That's what they care about. The green thing is a really easy sell because it makes sense on so many levels. If you said to people, look, I don't care about the environmental sustainability aspects, or I just want to buy myself an apartment. I said, yeah, but I tell you what, do you care that this is going to be worth more in 5 years than a product that doesn't have these kind of green credentials? Do you care about your resale price? Yeah. Do you care about getting a better quality tenant, not some Yahoo, but somebody that's actually going to respect the property and leave it in a better condition, give you a better cash flow the whole way along? Do you care about that? Yeah. Great. Well, then you care about green, whether you know it or not. Selling is a bit like diagnosing somebody. The people who sell the best are doctors, because they say, well, if I push here, does it hurt? And if yeah, that hurts, okay. Well, based on everything that you've told me, I reckon you've got Ebola. Unless you can say this line of dialogue almost without altering it, based on everything that you have just told me, XYZ is a perfect fit for you. Let me tell you why. You have not diagnosed their why. You have not reached into their motivations deeply enough for you to then be able to take your wealth of knowledge and make it relevant to them. So, if I was going to leave you guys with one takeaway on selling green, on selling anything, it's this. You need to forget about what you want for a second and understand deeply what they want for a second, and then take your knowledge and show them how it really is relevant. And if you can do that, then there's no reason that they shouldn't believe it. That's it.
Sell ice to Eskimos.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sven. So next up is Chris. I'm not sure if he needs an introduction. I'm sure most of you know him. He's been in the sustainability game forever, and quite coincidentally, the name of what he does at the moment is a Forever project. But apparently one of the largest free educational schemes in Australia. Bit of a celebrity gardener on the radio, but someone who knows it and has been involved for such a long time. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you, Alex. My tongue, can I say some lovely platitudes about what you said? I love that, what you were talking about, the beer, and I'm passionate as well about making sure we honour and respect where we are and how lucky we are in this amazing country. And I have to say, I haven't started yet, can I just say it's the International Year of Soil. Does everyone know that? No. The United Nations comes out with something every year. Sometimes it's a bit out there, but this one, we're nothing without soil. The reason we're here enjoying this beautiful life is soil. And it's nearly 100 years ago since Teddy Roosevelt, as President of the United States, stood up to Congress and said, "A nation that destroys its soil destroys itself." And that's my tagline in my emails. It's so wonderful. And I live and dream of the day when our leaders will say, we have to talk about soil, we have to talk about how important it is. Okay, can I start now?
Yeah, you can start.
So soil is everything. But, and that does lead into what I'm talking about, because yeah, people will glaze over. If I say soil, they go, what the hell is that all about? People aren't interested in that. If I try to run a workshop on grow beautiful soil or composting, I'll get the beautiful do-gooder greenies and hippies, and that's wonderful, but they've already had all of this. Our job, I believe, is to get to the hearts and minds of people who are very busy, who live in what I call the bubble of the X Factor and Survivor and all those other shows where, you know, they can live in a world where they don't even know there are environmental problems. If you want to, you can tune out entirely to the problems of the planet and think that, therefore, these greenies are just conspiratorial or doing something to try and peddle a particular idea. We, of course, know differently. We are tuned into the fact that the Earth is seriously under threat. So, in the work that I do, which is trying to inspire and empower people to make change, I try very much to make sure that when we are marketing and promoting, which is essentially what we try and do, we try and market and promote the idea, come to one of our events, put your bum on our seat, then our sponsors like it and they give us more money, because like everyone else, I have to make money to live. Okay, so for me, I don't ever play the environmental card. It's no real point, because I'll get the same well-meaning, beautiful hippies and greenies, and they've already been taught. They probably might get a little bit of extra nuanced material, but I want to get to those that don't think they're a problem. I was saying before I started, I'd love to be parachuted into a Tea Party conference in America. That sounds far more gentle and benign than it actually is, but, you know, bring it on, because to me, if you went one-on-one with them, the deeper you dig into that arch-conservative mindset, it's empty, it's hollow, there's nothing there, and it's based on fear. Whereas we know, and that's why they're so scared of us, I believe, is because they know at our heart is truth and love. Okay, getting very hippie and herbal. But the point is, at its heart, it makes common sense, sustainability. And that's exactly what Sven was saying, that it makes sense. When you actually tease these things out, it makes sense. So for me, when I'm trying to run workshops, etc., or events, I go for the old what's in it for me. And we know people are motivated by what's going to save them money or make them money, what's going to save them time, what's going to get rid of the angst in their lives. And for a lot of people, we know the angst is they want to have healthy food. They want to be keeping up with what are the trends. And the trend, of course, now is fresh food and seeing a chef do his thing. And they're also angst about their kids. And there are lots of people, I'm sure, who know or either are parents, and they are worried about their kids and their future. So for me, I try and ride on those particular fear buttons. Fear is a great motivator. And by that, if we can get people to come in and then inspire and empower them to be able to live more constructive and fulfilling lives, then that allows us to get to a whole new mindset of people. So one of the events we run now is a thing called Food Theatre, where we link in with a chef. And yes, there are plenty of chefs out there and they'll cook things in front of you, but what we try and park onto that message is the food is only as good as the way it's grown and the way that it's processed and packaged and where it's come from. And when you start to tease that out, and people come because they're interested in that, you can start to actually connect with them because they are interested in food, and you can then start to make them conscientious consumers. And suddenly, they're born-again greenies. They start to go, there's a reason why people go with organic food. I get it now. Or there's a reason why we need to look after the soil. I get it now. So you can actually put in some very profoundly important messages into what was otherwise just a fairly benign, frivolous activity of watching a chef do his thing. And I think that's me done. Thank you.
Well, that was pretty amazing. Thanks, guys. I know you've all got heaps of questions, but because I've got the mic all up there, I'm going to ask some questions because I've got some burning ones. Sven, in the world of sales, you always cop knockbacks, right? How do you stick with it? How do you stay motivated? What's the trick?
Love and acceptance. No, I mean, it's about knowing. I'm going to get a bit philosophical and you know, more of a hippie than I actually know.
Yeah, you are. You put on this front, but deep down.
At the end of the day, you've got to work out whether you can help somebody or not. At the end of the day, you've got to work out whether what they're trying to achieve is something that you can empower them with, or you can't. You know, look, I got taught by one of my old sales trainers is you can't close the unclosable, and you have to work out when you can't help somebody, when you're not going to closing as a sale, or moving them closer towards a sale. So it's not really a knockback. It's just that you don't have what they need, or it's not right for them right now. Doesn't mean it's not going to be right for them later. Doesn't mean that you can't doesn't mean that it's not an exercise in futility just because you don't have what they need right now.
I guess part of the question too is, I mean, for a lot of us who are not natural salespeople, it's very hard to get
No
out
one's a
there.
natural salesperson. They're not.
What do you mean by that?
They're learned.
Okay.
You learn. You learn how to speak. You learn dialogue. You learn how to relate to other people. You learn your social norms.
Yeah, sure.
There's this absolute bullshit myth that people are born some way. They're not. They're created that way, but they've created themselves that way because it's something they have a desire to be.
Cool. Adam, I can see you sort of deep in thought during both the speakers after you there, and one thing that was sort of focused on a bit there was the financial benefit of purchasing something that might be green. Do you agree with that, or do you have a position that sometimes the dollar should be up front, or sometimes more the emotional conversation be up front, and how do you know where to work it for a particular product?
I think the emotional thing would always get people across the line. Like people, again, to go back to Apple, it's not the cheapest smartphone in the world, and yet people buy it. Like you go to Apple Store, people are dropping thousands of dollars. Like every second, someone's dropping another $1,000 on it. Something going to smash the next week when they step on it by accident, or whatever. Like it's stuff that people will pay for because they connect with. So if you can get that connection and build, and that's what I talk about with brand. If you can get that connection where people are like, I value this. I don't care what it costs. I value it. And why? I don't know. I just do. And we know why, because we've been very deliberate in how we've designed that process to get to that point. Then financial is almost is the rational brain kicking in to justify the decision you've already made. You then go, this isn't a stupid decision to buy this, life cycle assessment, 6-star, whatever it is, building. It's like I'm not crazy. It makes financial sense. Yeah. It's a good decision. But you're actually sold before you got to that point.
Yeah. Right.
And that's I guess what Sven's talking about is tapping into that deeper motivation. What is it? What is it that they want to hear? What is it they want to believe? What is it that actually is the button that gets them across the line?
Awesome. And Chris, do you see, like over time, the general way people think about green or sustainability over the years? Have you seen it change, and therefore do you see our communications and messaging changing with it?
I do. And I also think in the background to all of this is that we're more angst, more busy, more time poor, and perhaps more selfish and more hedonistic. So it's harder to get people to sit down and say volunteer or to join up to particular organisations. And there was a book written recently called Disconnected, and they talk about the CWA, and it had at the turn of the last century 300,000 members, and it's now in WA there are 4 members, and that's the CWA. And in their heyday they were building childcare centres and all sorts of things like that. So where I was going with that is we have to fight against or learn how to adapt to that, and that's what social media is so good at. If we can learn how to make something that fits with that instantaneous need for something, then I think that's when you start to be able to ride on that. So we have to, like any other industry, if we don't learn to be up with what's sexy and new and make our product innovative and clever and smart and all those things that people associate with hip and cool, that's I think what Apple really provides a bit of, then that's when we can start to be able to compete with those, that massive amount of noise that's out there that would otherwise distract people from taking the green message. So it's changed in what I perhaps haven't answered that well. People are probably more sophisticated and aware and conscious of various things, but they're also more time poor, so we have to be able to counter that.
Awesome. Can I just throw into that, and I'm going to sound a bit like a broken record here, but when people are time poor, they don't make decisions rationally, they make emotional decisions. And so that's, again, where if you can build something on emotional, key into something really deep, people don't know why they're deciding this stuff. They just do it. And it doesn't have to be hip or cool. That's just Apple as an example. Some brands are totally not hip or cool, but they're very popular. I should have one off the top of my head.
I love, sorry, just looking now, look at palettes. 3 years ago you would never see a palette anywhere. Now you go to the latest, hippest, coolest Upcycle was a word we didn't even know 5 years ago, and upcycle is just hardcore reuse of materials, which I'm sure thrills you nowhere. And so suddenly they have, and I do use that term hip and cool because it's like in many ways we've caught on to that this is a really cool trend. And in the old days of veggie gardens and the permaculture days, it was car tyres and it was hideous and ugly. Now people will spend $800 on a very funky raised garden bed that's been manufactured and formed. So in many ways this stuff has actually become cool and hip, and I think that's pretty good when you know that that's become mainstream.
Awesome. Now look, I've been selfish and I got my 3 questions in there, and I'm sure you guys have questions or statements or comments, and Sam's busting.
Go Sam.
Get into it. Do you want to stand up? Go.
Okay. Well, no, thinking about it.
Oh.
She stood up for a second.
Short anyway. I feel like sustainability is starting to sell. I think one of the biggest barriers we have is we seem to be able to get people over the line and convince them, but they don't have the money or they want to commit to services. It's quite difficult and challenging because it's still, we put a lot of time, we put a lot of effort, and we probably usually do 3 times the work for clients that it's required because we are so passionate about it. But how do you convince people, as well as just the value of sustainability, getting them to actually understand the quality of work behind it?
That's such a great question.
You know what my answer's going to be. Like, it will be if they believe in the brand, they'll pay what it needs to be. If the values align with what they want, they'll pay.
Values align. Exactly right. You have to understand. You think it has value.
Yeah.
You think it has value, but you need to understand how they perceive value. Because people perceive value in quite different ways. So you have to understand how they perceive value, how they understand the future, what their idea of success looks like for them. And when you can do that, then you can speak. Then you can push those hot buttons. Anybody's buying or decision-making factor, it's kind of like a PIN code on an ATM. Unless you know the numbers, you don't know really what ones to hit. And that's where it's important that you get a really good understanding of what makes a successful decision for them, and then you can pitch your idea in terms of value references that they will understand and take on board.
Let's ask you, Sven, on that one. How important do you think is it that the purchaser feels that you believe in the product?
Not very. I'm a salesman, which makes me like very close to a politician.
Going back to the Apple story, I mean, that's a classic one that people bought it because of Steve Jobs and his ability to sell his passion that everyone bought into, regardless of the price. Is that, I mean...
You have to know in your heart that it's the best decision for them to make.
Sure.
But we're talking about sustainability here. And it's not a one-off sale. It's not you're buying a destination. You're buying a journey. So how do you keep it relevant? Oftentimes it's real easy to get someone across the line once, but to keep the value and the new value creation and proposition as you go along, that's the difficult part. Just as often as getting someone across the line, you have to resell the same person.
Yeah, because you have to believe that this sustainability thing is a macro trend. Ladies and gentlemen, we stand at an inflection point of how this city is going to develop moving forward, how it's going to grow, and how we will fundamentally connect and live as a society. And if you don't believe that, then go sit in a traffic jam for a while.
I told you he loves it.
You have to believe that it's a fundamental trend, because
but like you said,
living healthy.
Trying to sell this to someone and explain that that's.
Maybe you're saying you don't need to believe that a one-bedroom apartment is the best thing for you, but it's the best thing for the buyer.
And it's sustainability the best thing for how we move on sustainably and to keep that. It's a bit like saying, look, how do I resell to my children that cleanliness is a good idea every day? It's not hard because it's something whose relevance doesn't. It's not a point-in-time transaction.
Alex has got a burning question up the back there.
I was just thinking, does that mean that we need to have a variety of selling points for sustainability? It's not going to be the same journey for every single person.
Absolutely, because everyone has different motivating factors.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you find that, Chris?
Yeah, I do, and the word that I use is empathy. So I deal with many different people, and I had a client who multi-million-dollar piece of land he's bought. Not the normal people I deal with, and I was asked to give some advice on how the vegetation near him, the public open space area, was going to impede on his view to the ocean. And my first thought was, seriously, mate, that is, of all the problems in the world, that wouldn't get into the top 10 billion. But, but then you empathise with the guy, you spend time, and we're human beings, we're used to coordinating with one another, and when he could see I empathise with him, we're actually able to come up with a solution. So I was able to sell something to him that was a compromise from what he originally wanted. So for me personally, empathy. So I need to understand where they're coming from, which I think is what you're saying, because then you're not in your trench and they're in theirs, and therefore it becomes intractable, and they leave going bloody hippies and you leave going bloody rednecks. And my neighbour across the road from where I live is a classic. If you've been to my place, it's like I couldn't get a better polar opposite. So he's got big lawn out in front, 1 rose, and he's got bogan cars, but he's actually a really nice bloke. And we get on, and he looks across at this scruffy native garden and hippie flags and posters everywhere. But we have some connection, and that's when he'll actually be sympathetic to the sustainability message. I feel confident now. I can go to him and go, "You've got a garden bed there. Do you want some native plants to stick in there?" Now, to me, I'll just go, "How cool is that?" But this guy who would never have voted green in his life and thinks we're all a bunch of idiots, would now actually be sympathetic to that message, because connection of empathy allows you to get rid of the filters and screens. I believe we just have so many filters and screens to live in the busy world. I don't like you because you're X, and I like you because you're Y, and it allows us to cope in a world where, God forbid, if we were to accept everyone or be open all the time, we just drown, I think. So it allows, I think, empathy, that word again.
Like
Awesome.
Relating to both the last two conversations, how do you know what people find valuable? Like, do you try
Ask them.
So you start your sales pitch by just finding out what they want, even though that might be the opposite of.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then you convert what they're saying, even though it might not be.
Well,
What you try to sell into something that sounds.
You can't help. Look, people will make the same decision for different reasons, right? But some people will, for some people it'll be location and amenity. For some people it'll be the green features. But for both of them, that particular apartment or whatever might be right for them. But yeah, most people, if you just ask them, like, what are you trying to achieve today? So what? But I'm not going to give you a pitch for an apartment, but so hi, how you doing?
Actually, I think
Have we told you anything about the apartment? Have you been speaking to anyone today? Great. Ask you looking for a 1-bedroom or 2-bedroom apartment today? Kind of ideal price range. Fantastic. North and southern facing. Okay. Tell me more. Yeah. Exactly. So if you ask people, and like I said, you have to have what's called, and there's a whole bunch of NLP and future pacing and all that crap that I'm not going to bother you. I would not put through today, but you still have to be able to say, look, based on everything that you've just said, I believe that A, B, and C are the top 3 choices here for you. Now let me explain why, and that's when you start selling. Not before that.
I'm pretty sure there was someone else who wanted to ask you to give a pitch. He's dodging the question. I think it was.
I do have a couple of questions though. I was trying to avoid the limelight because I'm sweating like nothing else.
To bring us beer. That's right.
Yeah, I've got a lot of grog.
Very noble cause.
Yeah, makes me feel justified. So I feel sometimes in the sustainability sector, if you're selling a particular product or whatever, there's competitors, right? And the competitors actually bag each other out. And it actually sort of like harms sustainability. Just interested.
It also harms you too. The moment that you start to badmouth your competitors, you go into negative territory and you're finished.
Yeah.
So what was the end of the question?
Well, I'm interested to understand that, particularly the sales experts, how do you stop yourself from falling into that trap, and also for the sustainability guys up there. Do you feel the same way? Do you feel that you're competing against other people that are doing good and missing this massive part of the pie because we're all making each other look bad?
No, the funny thing is because
I was going to say I'll throw that to Sven, but
There's not that many people out there that are doing good, to be blunt, right? In my opinion, there's a lot of people, there's a boatload of tokenism, there's a boatload of greenwashing, and you know why they're doing it? Because it's important, right? Because it's worth money. The reason that people bolt the tokenistic gestures like a few solar panels for the common property is because there is a stated demand for it. There's a very cynical sales quote that said, if the world's calling for apples, sell them apples, and if all you've got is oranges, boy, paint them green. And that's a little bit of what I believe is going on out there. But the people that are educated, because those are their hot buttons, they're not stupid. So if you can show them genuinely what you are doing, and it's not tokenistic, then it's not too hard to stand above the rest, in my opinion.
So Adam, how do you avoid that temptation to kind
I
of
was just going to say, like,
accidentally bag someone when you're...
well, it just comes like it's very interesting to hear what Chris has to say about empathy, and like if you see what companies or organisations don't do very well is be human. Because and it kind of structurally that's the way you see yourself as a human inside a box, and that box bashes against things and it does what it does, with ethics or whatever, But if you actually say, no, let's just reframe this. Let's make this company human. How do we do that? Well, it's got to be empathetic. How do we do that? Well, then we've got to actually relate to people as they come to us, which is kind of what Sven's saying. So, how do you, to answer Alex, who's not listening anymore, how do you make that work? How do you make that work for people and, not bad-mouthing people? You wouldn't do it as a normal human being, would you? Like, as a normal human being, you wouldn't expect to get far in life if you walk into an event like this and say, mate, that Chris Ferreira, he's a dickhead. You're going to get nowhere, are you? Because people are going to look at you. You're the dickhead, actually. And that's just, like, you just take that lesson and apply that to how you run your company. Very simple then. Your company is human, treated like as you would expect to be treated.
I agree, and there's some very powerful. I've mentioned fear and love. Really, I believe everything gets boiled down to that. And if you're bad-mouthing someone, there's a fear that somehow the only way you're under attack. Whereas if you believe in your heart that what you have and what you can offer is just so important and so valuable and limitless, then what does it matter? And I also believe that the competitive model that the world has just torn so many things apart. It's the reason why we don't have hybrid cars everywhere or hydrogen cars, because the competition, we've got to get rid of this thing that is new rather than, wow, that's really cool. How could we work together and evolve our business? So personally, I try not to badmouth people in the industry, and I believe Sven's right too, that actually I believe most people are trying to do the best they can with what they've got. They might not have a lot, so therefore they don't do a pretty good job, but everyone is trying to do the best they can with what they've got. So that to me is the kindling of empathy, so you can at least go, well, I don't like what they're doing, but I've got to be able to try and give them some stuff. What's that old saying, when you point at someone and the three fingers are pointing back at you? So,
Four.
maybe
Five.
one.
Another question.
Yeah, maybe three.
No, but also, if they go, oh, we've got this thing, bad about the guy, what? Well, we've got this much, but think about it, it's a trigger. When they say they've got X, Y, and Z, you go, oh, no, don't worry about that crap, ours is much better. It's go, okay, well, clearly this is important to them, because they've bought it up. I'm really pleased you said that, because what we're doing here is not just A, B, and C, but we go to D, E, F, and G as well. Isn't that cool? So you don't need to badmouth people. You just need to point out.
Differentiate, but support the industry effectively. So
Absolutely.
hone in on their value.
You like solar panels? Would you like one in your apartment or just for the common property? I like one for my apartment. Fantastic, we've got that.
Yeah.
I think that's the
One
key
kilowatt.
too, like, from what Richard's saying there, the market is like behemoth, right? And if we just focus in around here and argue with each other, we're missing this amazing opportunity. But there's another question.
You're selling for more than one person. You're selling, so for example, from a procurement perspective, I've been buying for 20 years and selling for 2 now. You'll secure the deal with the decision maker, the internal stakeholders within that organisation, winning them over when they've been saturated by greenwashing. What do you do in circumstances like that?
For me, it's partnerships and relationships. So you've got to build that relationship with them. And for me personally, I don't want a quick sale. I want to be able to form a partnership with someone and genuinely form, like any good partnership in life, you want it to, it's going to have its ebbs and flows, but it's when that trust and that relationship builds, then you're more likely to be able to permeate through from whoever was the original decision maker to the rest, to be able to go, that's pretty cool. If you can pepper it with good examples of what you've been able to achieve, then I think that's when you ultimately can win them over. It may not happen quickly, but because they've got their own position to defend, but I think that's only going to be dissolved by them seeing that you've built that relationship.
I'd be interested in your opinion from the sales perspective.
Make sure the girlfriend wants it. Then you've got just more than one sale to make. A guy called Robert Cialdini did a study, and he said people do things for only a few reasons. If I remember this. Scarcity, consistency, authority, reciprocity, likability, and social proof. Everything boils down to one of those hot buttons, basically. And you talk about fear and love. I talk about fear and greed. It's about the same thing. I was a stockbroker, right? Well, I mean, we all want things, which is. But so you've just got more than one sale to make. But it's understanding what globally people are trying to achieve. If it's an organisation, what's their overarching vision? Forget their goals. No one buys into anything or follows anyone because they love their goals, right? They've got to love their vision. So if you can speak to their vision, which is that overarching sort of magnetic north, then and take it back to that, then that's probably, and that's qualifying.
Develop champions within their organisation, effectively, trying to get them to take them.
But also speak to their bigger picture. People are trying to do things not for the little things that they can plug into spreadsheets, but no one buys a house as an investor because of the depreciation benefits and the rent and all that stuff. They buy it for something bigger, financial freedom. Why do they want financial freedom? For that for a bigger vision of what that lifestyle goal will give them. So you've got to speak to people, if they're groups of people, at the highest common denominator, because that's their magnetic north, rather than their individual things so much. If you can sell them on the magnetic north, then they're going to go in the same direction.
One of the issues I remember having when I first started my first business was I built processes and spreadsheets so the cows came home, and if the phone ever rang, I just pushed a button and it just worked, right? But the phone never rang, and I was too afraid to get on the phone. Do you see there's a bit of a taboo in the green space around selling? Like, because we don't sell because we're greenies, and selling is consumerism, and consumerism is bad. And is there ways of breaking that taboo down and helping people who are in the green space just go, you know what, I don't care, I'm getting out here because I want to do it.
I do want to answer this. Like, if you see yourself as selling, you're saying you're trying to force something they don't want. You've got something they need.
To change the perception.
Exactly. Well, it's in your head. That's all it is. If you say, I'm trying to sell them something, they don't really want it, but I'm going to tell them they need it or they want it and they'll buy it. It doesn't work. Never worked, ever. If you, in your head, say, these guys need me. They really need me, and all I've got to do is introduce myself to them and explain why they need me, then you're selling, you sell yourself, and then you can sell them. Surely, Sven, surely I'm not.
See themselves as a salesman. What's wrong with being a salesman? Jeez, I've been slinging most of my life. I don't have that paradigm problem of seeing myself as a salesman. That's kind of what I do. I mean, it's not prostitution, but it's still.
Were you always like that? When you were a kid, were you the kid out there selling lemonade to the next door neighbours? And
we had a farm, so I sold eggs. I had an egg stand.
Well, you said it's something you're not born with, you learn. So those skills.
Sales skills are the skills that you learn. Okay. I can teach anyone that can learn dialogue and speak English.
But why are some of us more inclined to jump on the phone rather than others?
They want to.
Right. So what can we do to help that?
It's how you see yourself. I mean, it's funny. There was a while in property, and everyone wanted to call themselves a property consultant or a property advisor or some bullshit like that. Now you're a salesman. What's wrong with being a salesman? For God's sakes, and it's I don't get it. Quite frankly, I can't answer that.
Hey, Chris, you obviously, you got to get on the radio. You got to do all sorts of stuff. I mean, do you still have the nerves, or you just just love it?
I personally, I get nervous, absolutely, and there's those those wonderful, motivational quotes. I remember Lane Beachley saying once, you've got to go out with a little bit of fear. If you're going to tackle a 30-foot wave, you have to have some fear, but you use that to heighten all of your senses. So you're going, right, I have to be at my most acute. So to me, I think it goes back to what Adam was saying, is, well, you've got to believe in what you're doing, and for me that comes easy. And that's never been a problem. So, but I do encourage everyone to be able to stand up and talk, because at the end of the day, things get done in this world because we have orators, people who can stand up. And at the end of the day, that's the number one thing we do, is we communicate with one another. And at the moment, we have a leader who is extraordinarily bad at communication. Just seriously, my God. So, but then you look at someone like Malcolm Turnbull, who lots of people are saying, well, he's an orator, or Barack Obama. I'm not saying they necessarily do everything right, of course, but the point is, things have happened in history because you have people who can stand up and talk. So to me, one of the greatest skills I can say that anyone can have is the ability to stand up and talk and believe in yourself, because if you believe in yourself, to me, what bubbles from that is passion. And people connect to passion. And once they believe that you're passionate, I think that's one of the ways that you break down barriers, and they start to go, yeah, that person is actually saying something I can believe in. Thank you.
Answer.
One question is about education. How important do you think education is in this plan of selling? And how much education do you need before sustainable becomes profitable?
I think it's a big part of it. And that's, so education in terms of at schools and wherever in life, education is a huge part of it. Married with marketing. 1 million people went to see the Giants because there was media saturation. You couldn't go anywhere without this, and suddenly it's like the moth to the flame. They just went, wow, so many people went. And I'm sure lots of us would have thought of so many other ways to get 1 million people motivated to do something really powerful for the planet. And at the moment, that's not the case. So it's education, but I think it's also arm in arm with some fantastic across-the-board marketing is when you get big change for people.
You speak of lots of marketing. Now, I know of a particular large project home builder who has $1.5 million budget in the West Australian alone to sell a product. Adam, you might be best positioned. How do you compete with that? Like, if we're tiny little startups, what can we do to help get messages cutting through that?
I mean, your market's not the same. Really, I would suggest it's as simple as that. And what you're far better off. Of course, we don't have $1.5 million to spend in that, but we can have a very strong brand, a very strong personality that attracts people to what we're doing. And so people, you can actually fill all of what you need to sell everything that you need to sell by having a very strong thing that attracts people. Just like the Giants attracted, way oversold the capacity of Perth to handle all those people, but because people identified with this kid and diver wandering through the streets of Perth and causing havoc. That there was that story that people I'm reluctant to bring this up, but the story is actually what has all of this together. Not necessarily literally. It's not about saying Jack and Jill walked up the hill and It's about what is it that actually unites us. It's actually storytelling. The orator. It all comes back to how can we tell a compelling story that knits together all these different things. Perhaps actually as a story. Perhaps taking elements of storytelling, like archetypes, like all these things.
And I think I can see the look on Sven's face. There's a slightly different opinion, and there's a potentially different markets. If you're selling a product, there needs to be a strong story. Sometimes it's an impulse buy. Maybe the story isn't as important, or
items are too high value to be an impulse buy. But I was thinking the original question with regards to how important is education. And we've spoken previously about being emotional and being logical, and there's a way that people, it's just how we're hardwired. Any complex, multi-dimensional, multifaceted decision, we always approach emotionally first and logically second. We just do. If you meet somebody and those small triggers, and you go, look, I actually think this person's a reasonable bloke, you'll find out you support the same footy team, drink the same beer, whatever. Your logical mind will kick in and look for things to like. If you meet someone, go into a house and go, oh, Jesus, this isn't for me, you'll look for, your logical mind will then look to corroborate that initially held impression, which is why it's so hard to change a bad first impression, because logically you're not trying to change it. Logically you're trying to reinforce to make simpler and more complicated things. And it's kind of a long-winded way of saying motivation is most important. Education comes second, because people become more educated in those things that they are interested in. And you can't force education. I'm trying. I've got a 6 and a 7-year-old. You can't force. It's difficult to force. You know what? Minecraft, and this guy called Stampy Longnose, oh my God, right? You know, they're fascinated by that, and then they learn lots about it. So I think with these sorts of things, you need to have that vision first. You need to have that emotional connection first, and people go, you know, this is big and this is something I need to know more about, and then they will go and educate. But just to push education out there without no one buys into your goal, they buy into your vision, if that makes sense. Your vision is an emotional direction and destination.
I think we got time for one more question, or maybe two if there's two super burning ones. Sam, you've already had one. Sorry.
Okay, so I'm quite new to sales and I'm starting an ethical clothing company, but people just cringe when I say ethical clothing. So I guess I'll start with Sven, but if you guys want to pitch in as well, how did you learn
There's sales, especially games like real estate, there's sales trainers out there. I went last week and after however many years doing it, went and did some dialogue training in cold calling, believe it or not, a course on again.
I'll just throw something in there. I do think that this is where brand can do it. Like I said at the start, like your brand can walk into that conversation before you even get close. So, you know, and Sven's sort of talking about the name automatically selects the people who are going to come and talk to you. So you might, if you're happy with that, that's cool. But if you feel that that's limiting people, then maybe change the name, maybe change the brand, maybe think about what it is you're trying to, what's the audience you're trying to sell to, and then sales is actually a whole lot easier because people are essentially pre-qualified. You don't try and sell apartments to people who want a half-acre block. You know, that's just stupid. If you went to a farming expo and tried to sell them, you know, one-bedroom apartments in West Leederville, not gonna work. Waste of your time. But if you sell those, if you go into Singapore and they want all their kids to have a place to live while they're at uni, then you're probably going to sell something.
Perfect. Andrew, got time for one more.
Are we doing pictures?
Are we doing pictures?
30-second pictures.
Oh, I thought you were going to draw a picture of the pitch. Yes, totally. Give us your pitch.
After the questions, or?
No, stand up and give us your pitch.
Alright. It goes for about 2.5 minutes. Like.
Is that allowable?
Right?
Yeah.
That's okay.
Alright, it's a bit of an experiment, so it may crash and burn, but let's give it a crack.
Well, that's what tonight's about. Not crashing and burning, but experimenting and getting feedback.
Oh, yeah. I think, because I've been exploring this a lot in my business, which is life cycle logic. So I do life cycle assessment. I'm a scientist. I want to do a report for you. This is the way I used to sell it. So I've changed it. This has radically changed over the last week. So, but the result's been quite spectacular. So I'm going to play a little bit of an experiment on you guys, but hopefully it works. So let's think about the environmental movement. When did that start? Currently we're at record levels of biodiversity loss. Our climate is changing so fast that the future of us to be able to prepare and produce our food is at risk. Look at Queensland, the devastation, loss of crops. Farmers are losing all of their orchards, so they can't, you know, after 3-4 years of having everything destroyed, how are we going to grow our food? And this is why we, and I say we as a collective, we have failed. It's because we're scared. We're peddling fear. Who wants to buy fear? No one. We also need to switch from our engineering and scientific brains to engage the other side to sell what Sven said, a vision. A vision is a future that people want to buy. Compliance, regulation, these are fear-based mechanisms. And this is what we're doing in sustainability in Australia. It's all compliance, it's all regulation, it's all fear. And yes, we need a stick, we need regulation, but we equally need a carrot, a very big carrot. To sell a sustainable future that is calm, relaxing, safe, secure, and rewarding, and full of hope. Picture yourself in a sustainable future now, drinking your beer that's been provided by the farmer. And we're living in a society that's powered by the sun and the wind and the waves. Picture that we're there and our job is done. Now I'm quite nervous, so it's probably not coming across perfectly as I wanted to, but
It's going well, mate.
picture the vision of our truly sustainable and equitable future. Feels good, doesn't it? So the experiment I played there with you was, despite my nerves, selling the fear at the start. You guys would have felt your heart rates rise and you would have gone into fear mode. And then the calm future, everyone would have calmed down. And this is in the heart and the thinking is in the head. And we need, so the way we sort of can sell sustainability is not to sell a product, sell a vision. This is what Apple does. They don't sell you a phone that only battery lasts half a day. Still diabolical. They sell you a vision of being an artist and being free. That's what we need to sell in sustainability. So you need your vision. You need to be very clear on your vision and what you are trying to do yourself. Because that gets us out of bed in the morning. When you're depressed, you're like, oh my God, no one cares about sustainability. What's my vision? My vision is a more sustainable and equitable place. So that helps you to map the chart of how to get to this place. We're here right now. It's pretty awesome, but it can be better. And with this vision, we can then map that path. So why I'm talking about this whole fear thing, fear disables us. We're pack animals. As soon as you engage the fear mechanism, we shut down and we go back to the pack. We go back to the status quo and we go back to business as usual and compliance. It's already been raised, a dramatic demonstration of the Liberal Party leadership styles of Tony Abbott with no vision. He's lost. And Malcolm Turnbull is a highly educated man. They're both highly educated. He's sitting back with his vision. Every opportunity, he says, this is my vision for a future Australia. You watch him, he's going to take over for sure.
How did politics get into this session?
So my
We haven't
point
touched on religion.
Yeah, we can get into that. Don't sell sustainability. Don't sell a product. Sell a vision of the amazing guilt-free future that sustainability will bring. That's it.
Awesome. Well, I think that was a perfect way to wrap it up. Thanks, Andrew.
Feel relaxed.
We all calm and relaxed. I was wanting jumping up and down and people throwing stuff. We're all chilled out. No, look, I think it was all, one thing that just consistent words seem to be empathy, storytelling, vision, passion. It was quite interesting that in all the questions seemed to end up with those same words coming at the top. It was interesting that logic, kind of never really got a look in. Logic was something that came next, and that's one that I've probably learnt a lot from today and from what you guys have said as well, that we are selling a vision here, we are selling passion. You're finding out what other people need through use of empathy, and then coming back to it. So look, we've got a comment. Go in.
I think what we also decided here as well is vetting your customer. That we've accepted there's some people you can't change, so you just need to move on. Because that's what I got a lot from this, is you just can't sell to someone who doesn't care, and they just have to accept that. So if you 7 out of 10 people, you're not going to be able to sell sustainability no matter what to everyone.
True. I think Chris touched on something really nicely too, though. Like you shouldn't give up, and the bogan across the road with the fast cars and the lawn, eventually you have empathy with. And you're not talking about sustainability, you're just talking about being mates and having a beer, then suddenly you might sneak a plant into the garden.
The TV on the front lawn is not quite ready for it.
But my uncle, for instance, or my uncle-in-law, for instance, we fought for 5 years on sustainability. Like, he is the most far right of the rightist, and you don't give up. There was. When I say fight, it was always about fun. It was always fun, but you always left something in that conversation. So we left and we laughed and whatever, but there was always something there that I know he went away and thought about. He's just bought a solar PV system. No, only for the money. Yeah, there's nothing I'm doing here. There's a good payback period. There's nothing for the money. But hey, he's got one on his roof now. Now he can't, if he's with his right-wing mates, they're like, what have you done that for? Oh, it's the money. So it's only the money. It's the money. So does it actually make sense? Yeah, it makes sense. So solar makes sense, does it?
renewable energy makes sense, does it? You start to edge, so never give up, I would say. Just work, mate, pick your fights, pick your battles, leave a little thing in there that just burns away at them. Because, as Chris made a really valid point, fear is hollow. Passion and vision isn't. And these guys, if they're relying on fear and a hollow vision, all you need to do is just sow a little seed and eventually it bruises.
Or stab it with something to top the the thing too, I guess, it's very easy to be paralysed, which a lot of people are by, you know, what is peddled is fear, and that's the newspapers, the TV, radio, Whereas for me, I just love every day because I just get to meet the most extraordinary people every day and we've got a room full of them. These people that are out there and they're passionate and they're innovative and they are hopeful, and that is a world away from people who just are so encrusted with fear that we just present something to them that they just can't even conceptualise, and they will then try and attack.
So fear is actually not such a bad fear is a very...
I was trying to wrap it up, but let's get going.
Okay. In neurolinguistics, there's two things. Everybody future paces two things, right? What if I do this? What if I do that? What's the best that can happen? What's the worst that can happen? So, look, fear is a wonderful motivating factor. It's what sort of kept us alive, and we tend to move away from fear more readily than we move towards pleasure. Right? Everyone would like to be fitter and but you know, it's when they have a heart attack and they're afraid of dying, they make some changes. So, yeah, I know it's a bit controversial, but I don't think that, because you can say, look, this is your future one way. This is your future the other way. You know, choose. Which one do you want? Fear is a, don't underrate fear. It's a fairly useful motivating factor if you know how to use it.
Depending on how you use it.
It's fear when you say, you know, the front news is a woman got bashed in her home. That's mindless, destructive fear. That makes people think we live in a world where there's no point in reaching out to community, you can't trust anyone. That, I hear what you're saying, you know, the Lane Beachley thing of having enough fear that it motivates you, but just listening to mindless garbage fear, which we're peddled all the time, is what is so destructive.
That's hopelessness.
Yeah.
That's it. There's fear, there's hopelessness.
Yeah.
And I think on that note, we're definitely not hopeless. We've got heaps more ideas and heaps more passion and heaps more vision, and one thing that's, and heaps more beers. Heaps more beers.
Putting us on too, Alex.
Pleasure. And on that note, there's been a number of comments made leading up to this, and obviously having this session has sort of brainstormed for me. I think we need to do more of this. We all are quite small organisations, or we might be a small player in a big organisation, and one thing that I think helps a lot is having like-minded people come together and chat. It's not just about sharing ideas and knowledge and skills, but it's also, dare I say, a bit of a support network. It's that moment where you've just had 5 knockbacks and you can't get another sale and you don't want to get out of bed, that you chat to someone and said, I just had 10 knockbacks and I've just got a sale that picks you up and keeps you going. So it's not something that eTool's going to keep doing, but I think it would be great to form a group, and you've all subscribed or hooked up through the RSVP, so we've got your emails. It would be awesome if you wanted to just send another email to Portia or myself or something and say, yeah, I'm keen to be a part of that, and we'll try and set something up that looks after itself and keeps it going, because I think it's vital that we all keep just sharing these ideas and the passion and the knowledge, because as I say, it is kind of the missing link here, and it, in my mind, is definitely the one thing that across sustainability needs a good shuffle. So I hope you all want to stick around for a beer and keep chatting, or if not, that you want to stay in touch with us and keep this conversation going. So thanks again for coming.
Thank you.